Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching WION-VOA Co-Production. My name is Molly Gambhir. On the first anniversary of the January 6th Capitol Riots, U.S. President Joe Biden delivered an address in defense of American democracy. He laid the blame for the insurrection squarely on the former U.S. President Donald Trump and the Republicans, who continue to spread the false narrative that the 2020 election was stolen. Voice of America Chief White House Correspondent Patsy Widakuswara getting you this report.
It has been a year since supporters of Donald Trump stormed the U.S. Capitol to stop lawmakers from certifying the results of the 2020 presidential election won by Joe Biden.
1 year ago today, in this sacred place, democracy was attacked.
Without once mentioning Donald Trump by name, Biden laid the blame squarely on him.
For the first time in our history, a president had not just lost an election, he tried to prevent the peaceful transfer of power as a violent mob breached the Capitol.
Biden also blamed Trump for what Democrats call the big lie, the narrative that the 2020 election was stolen, a baseless claim the former president and some Republicans continue to push to this day.
Because he values power over principle, because he sees his own interest as more important than his country's interest, than America's interest, and because his bruised ego matters more to him than our democracy or our Constitution. He can't accept he lost.
Trump canceled his planned news conference today and said in a statement that this political theater is all just a distraction for the fact Biden has completely and totally failed. In a statement, Mitch McConnell, the Senate's top Republican, accused Democrats of trying to exploit this anniversary to advance partisan policy goals. Many observers say American democratic institutions had been under stress long before the assault. Strengthening voting rights and election integrity was highlighted by Vice President Kamala Harris as a needed response to the insurrection.
Will it be remembered as a moment that accelerated the unraveling of the oldest, greatest democracy in the world? Or a moment when we decided to secure and strengthen our democracy for generations to come?
The siege has had a global impact. Adversaries, including Russia and China, have used it to defend their undemocratic systems.
For Putin to continue to push the message around the world that U.S. democracy is not something to be longed for, that it is as chaotic and broken as the Russian system is. And for China to argue, as it does, that it has an alternative that is superior.
Biden rejected the arguments.
From China to Russia and beyond, they're betting that democracy's days are numbered. They've actually told me democracy is too slow, too bogged down by division to succeed in today's rapidly changing, complicated world. And they're betting. They're betting America will become more like them and less like us. They're betting that America is a place for the autocrat, the dictator, the strongman. I do not believe that. That is not who we are. That is not who we have ever been. And that is not who we should ever be.
The road ahead is challenging. Fueled by election fraud conspiracies, Republicans in multiple states have championed legislation limiting voting access and giving them more power over their states' election systems. Democrats say these measures will disadvantage them at the ballot box and are a threat to democracy. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News, Washington.
And to speak about this further, joining us on the broadcast is Voice of America correspondent Chris Cascio in Washington. Hi, Chris. 5 people had lost their lives in the U.S. Capitol riots a year ago. Where do efforts stand in holding those who took part responsible and delivering justice?
Good morning from Washington, D.C., Molly. Of the thousands of supporters of former President Trump who stormed the Capitol, more than 725 have been arrested and charged with crimes. A Florida man received the stiffest sentence yet, more than 5 years for assaulting a police officer with a dangerous weapon. More than 80% of the more than 700 charged were charged based on evidence gathered from social media posts, often their own, as they bragged about their role in the Capitol riots. As for the former president, he maintains the 2020 election was rigged, even in the face of overwhelming evidence that there was no election fraud. Trump was planning to address his followers again yesterday on January 6th, but he canceled the event, and he says he'll instead address them at a rally planned for January 15th in Arizona. In late June of last year, the U.S. House of Representatives formed a special select committee to investigate the actions of then President Trump. The panel has issued subpoenas to compel former White House officials and Trump campaign staff to testify about the president's actions or inaction that day and in the days leading up to the attack. The committee is expected to release its report on its investigation before the November 2022 midterm elections, but it's important to note that its findings are not legally binding. Molly?
All right. For U.S. social media companies, the violent mob storming the U.S. Capitol on the 6th of January spurred action. They shut down then President Donald Trump's accounts. 1 year later, are Facebook, Twitter, YouTube any better prepared to face similar situations in the U.S. or in other parts?
That's debatable. As you said, the former president is still not permitted to use Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and the social media giants have made some changes. Twitter enacted a 5-strike policy on misinformation about COVID-19. Facebook now applies its content moderation rules to politicians, which is a group that it had shielded in the past. But the changes strike some experts as small. A former Facebook executive described them as whack-a-mole. Another Facebook whistleblower detailed how some of these problems are already familiar to company executives. Now, in the coming year, U.S. lawmakers could try to force the companies to make bigger changes to policing controversial content and being more transparent about what they're doing, especially with their algorithms that push out content. Molly?
Right. Stay with me, Chris. Let's also get our viewers up to speed with the latest COVID-19 situation in the United States. And amid the rise in cases, a number of universities in the U.S. state of California have cancelled their in-person classes and have gone back online. Voice of America's Christina Shevchenko spoke to several international students about the difficulties of learning amid the pandemic. Anna Rice narrating her story.
Most California university students were happy to get back to in-person learning in the fall. But the COVID Omicron surge has forced many California universities to resume online remote learning. Derek is from China. He lives here at one of the buildings of the University of California, Los Angeles Cooperative Housing. It's Derek's second year at UCLA studying anthropology, but so far he's been in the classroom for only one semester.
I do very much enjoy being on campus with everybody. I enjoy the company, I enjoy the social life, the social aspects. I like the feeling of being in classrooms, of walking from class to class. I feel more motivated to study when I'm on campus. I feel I'm getting a lot of things that I would not be getting if everything is online.
But now Derek, like thousands of his fellow students, will be returning to his room to sit in front of the computer screen.
In fact, if winter and spring are both going to be online, then by the time I graduate, I've only spent 1 quarter on campus. So I really think that it's quite sad.
21-year-old John lives at the fraternity house. He says when he and his fellow fraternity members learned about going back online, they all felt extremely stressed.
Nobody learns anything. You don't learn anything. Half of the time you can turn on your Zoom and you'll just walk around and do whatever.
So far, 7 California universities, Stanford and the University of Southern California among them, have announced they are switching to online classes. On top of that, universities will require proof of COVID booster shots from all students returning to the classroom. But booster shot requirements concern some students a lot less than the price of their tuition. As an international student, Derek pays roughly $40,000 a year for his education, but he believes studying online should not cost him that much.
But certainly as a student, I don't think it's entirely fair that we are paying for as much as we are.
Voice of America has sent inquiries to UCLA and University of Southern California, asking whether they have considered lowering tuition costs for students studying online, but has received no response. For now, the universities are only planning to hold online classes for a couple of weeks. That's welcome news for many here.
Even if you're there and being very attentive, it's still not the same as being in class.
Many students here just want to get back to the classroom. Christina Shevchenko, Anna Rice in Los Angeles, California, VOA News.
Let's go right back across to Voice of America correspondent Chris Cascio in Washington. Chris, the U.S. COVID-19 cases surging to record levels following the holidays. What is President Biden's plan to combat the spread of the Omicron variant?
President Biden has directed his administration to buy an additional 10 million courses of Pfizer's COVID-19 pill, Paxlovid, bringing the total in the U.S. to at least 20 million courses. He also promised to make booster shots and testing more widely available. With Americans still having to wait in long lines to get tested, Biden has been blamed for the delays and shortages. His administration has not yet given details on the distribution of the promised 500 million free at-home COVID test kits. Now, testing is considered key to limit Omicron's spread and reduce hospitalization rates. But more evidence is emerging that Omicron causes milder symptoms than the previous variants, in some cases resulting in lower death rates, despite soaring case numbers in those areas.
The U.S. is also expanding access to vaccine boosters for children. What can you tell us about those efforts?
Now, boosters were already encouraged for all Americans 16 and older, but on Wednesday, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention endorsed an extra Pfizer shot for younger teens, those 12 to 15, and it also strengthened its recommendation that 16 and 17-year-olds get a booster as well. The Pfizer BioNTech vaccine is the only option for children in the U.S. at this point. The CDC estimates that slightly more than half of 12 to 17-year-olds, that's 13.5 million people, have received 2 Pfizer shots. Now, boosters were first made available to 16 and 17-year-olds in December. Wednesday's decision by the CDC makes about 5 million younger adolescents who received their last shot in 2021, immediately eligible to receive those boosters. Molly?
Chris Cascio, we are leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us on the broadcast. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of WION-VOA Co-Production.